Hi everyone, this is Selena Kraus and welcome to another card video. In this video, I'm using the new Altenew Build a Flower stamp set and coordinating dies Snapdragon. And I'm really honored to be a guest designer for Altenew for this month's Build a Flower release. So let's take a quick look at the stamp set. So here are all the layers. We're building two flowers and they're the coordinating dies. And on the back of the packaging, you can see, as I'll flip here in a second, so there is a layering guide to show you how to layer all these stamps to get a very realistic look of that flower. So here are some cards that I made using and I stamped even more flowers using different colors and different color combinations. So here's this one, it's kind of half watercoloring. So I'll show you how to do that one, which is pretty non-traditional stamp layering. So let's get started. So I have a piece of watercolor paper here and I have a bunch of MISTIs here which are set up with all the layers to stamp both flowers from the stamp set. I'm using Arches cold press watercolor paper and I'm using Altenew ink cubes. So to start, I'm just spritzing my watercolor paper with water. Kinda you want to have little like shiny look to it, not to be too wet, so the color doesn't bleed all over, the ink doesn't bleed all over the paper. So I'm starting with the Altenew Aqualicious and I'm inking that first layer and stamping onto the wet watercolor paper. Before it dries, I'm going with the first layer of the stems and I'm inking it with the Parrot ink cube. So you can see here there's some bleeding. It's not a lot as it would be if we left that paper very wet. So spread a little bit more water here to achieve a little bit more bleeding of that flower on the right side. Next I'm heat setting it. So for the next layer, we're not gonna wet our paper, but we're gonna wet our stamp after we have inked it. So here I have the second layer of that flower and I'll be using the Teal Cave ink cube. So I'm inking that both stems, spritzing with water, and I realized here I applied a little too much water. So I'm wiping everything and repeating the process and just spraying a little bit, just tiny little bit of water. So there is that second layer. So here I had one spot that was uninked. So I'm just applying ink on that part of my stamp and stamping it. Next, I'm heat setting it again. This time I'm making sure that it's completely dry because in the next step we'll stamp that third layer or the second layer for the stems, and then we're gonna stamp over it and emboss with clear embossing powder. So I'm going in with that third layer into my MISTI and I'll apply anti-static powder tool onto my paper before I stamp. So here I'm just cleaning this, my stamps, making sure they're clean. Because I've stamped a bunch of other, all those flowers that I showed you before, I just wanted to make sure that it's nice and clean. And this third layer I was stamping with the Galactic Stream. Then I'll clean my stamp completely and I'll be using here the Versamark ink. Before I ink my stamp, I'm using that anti-static powder tool over my image and inking a couple times with Versamark. Next I'm going with clear embossing powder. I apply the clear embossing powder and now I'm gonna heat set that. So here you can see how that layer popped up and it's a little bit darker than it was just with the ink. And next I'm going back in my MISTI, the next layer, and I'm stamping with the olive ink cube. So you can see how these the flowers starting to come to life. So I'm stamping a few times because the cold press watercolor paper has some texture. so it needs a few times to be stamped to achieve nice and crisp image. So next I'm going with that the leaves for that flower on the left, again with olive ink. As well, I'll be stamping it with the Versamark ink. So I'm just applying that anti-static powder tool there. And then I'm just applied it, change the brush because I was transferring some blue color. I just sprinkle on the paper the powder from the powder tool, and I just applied it directly to the paper. So next, I'll make sure that I clean my stamp and I ink it with the Versamark ink. I'm going back with the previous layer, and I'll do the same. Apply the Versamark ink. First clean the green ink from my stamps, apply Versamark, stamp onto my watercolor paper, repeat it again, and stamp again. Next I'll apply the clear embossing powder, and I will emboss it, heat set it. So next I'm going with the coordinating dies and positioning those and securing them there. It's a micropore tape. So we have that there, and I'll run it through my die cutting machine. With the magic of YouTube, they already die cut. So now we're ready to prepare our background. I have another piece of watercolor paper, and I'm using citrus burst ink cube. But before I use that, I'm going just with clean water and applying a layer of clean water onto the watercolor paper, and then I'm applying some of that citrus burst ink to create that watercolor wash in the background. Next I will heat set it to speed up the process, or you can just set it aside to dry. So I'm quickly heat setting it on both sides to make sure that we have a flat surface, positioning the flowers to see where I want them to go. Next I'm picking out a sentiment. So after I pick my sentiment, I'm using some mica watercolors. Those are the fine tech, and I'm adding some water to kind of get the pigment out of that watercolor pen, and then I'm adding it onto acrylic block and then just splattering all over my background. So you can set this aside to dry, or you can use your heat tool if you have no patience like me, and just heat set it or dry it out. So next now we can assemble our card. So before that, I'll stamp the sentiment onto vellum. So position it in my MISTI tool. I'm applying that anti-static powder onto the vellum and stamping with Versamark ink. Next I will apply some champagne embossing powder. Flick off the excess and heat set it. Next, by magic of YouTube, I've trimmed my sentiment strip, and I'm using some vellum adhesive here to adhere onto the panel, onto my watercolor panel. I'm using the grid on my mat to make sure that that sentiment is straight, and then I'm folding back those little ends, and then I'll secure them on the back of my panel using micropore tape. So there is that panel. Next, what I'll do is I'll add the flowers. I'll use some foam adhesive to add some more dimension. So I'm just adding bunch onto the back, and I cut out a little strip for the stem. I'll do the same for the second flower. just making sure that I don't add any foam adhesive on the spots where this flower will overlap with the one that is already adhered. So I'm adhering that, removing the backing of the adhesive. I'm just adding some liquid adhesive on the overlapping parts. Next, I'll just trim the excess that hangs off the card of the panel. On the back, I will cover it with foam adhesive tape in my particular case, or you can use fun foam. I didn't have one handy or cut to size, so I decided to use just the foam tape. So here I have a top folding panel from black cardstock, and I will adhere that watercolor panel with the images onto it. So remove the backing and making sure that it's positioned straight. And to finish off the card, I'm adding some little dewdrops. So next I'll use some strong adhesive to adhere those to my card. And this pretty much finishes our card. So here's a little close-up. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel as well to my blog. And see you soon in another video. Thanks for watching. Bye!